IBM is launching the Sustainability Accelerator, and I'm going to be talking to Jen Roynon, who's the IBM Corporate Social Responsibility Leader, about it. So, welcome to the interview, Jen.
Thanks for having me. So happy to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you. Now, I haven't run across the idea of a Sustainability Accelerator before. Maybe could you just give us an overview about it, please?
Sure. Our Sustainability Accelerator is a pro bono social impact initiative that we really use to mobilize IBM talent, IBM technology to support not for profit organizations that are focused on the environment and sustainability to help them kind of co-create solutions and accelerate those solutions to market using technology and expertise.
Okay, let's bring that into the real world. So let's say that we had an indigenous community in northern Canada somewhere that wanted to get off diesel to generate electricity, wanted to bring in renewable, like wind or solar or something like that. Is that the kind of project we're talking about?
Yeah, sure. So what we would do is there are two phases to the accelerator. So we would have phase one, which is the ideation phase, where we would work with the not-for-profit or the indigenous community on kind of the idea or the seed of the idea that they had. So what we do is we use the IBM Garage methodology. So it's our methodology that we work with clients around the world on to co-create solutions. So we use kind of our agile methodologies, our enterprise design thinking methodology, and we wrap data science consultants around the organization and help co-create the idea or the potential solution to help them get off diesel.
Okay, that's great. Now, as kind of an old car enthusiast, I get the idea of the garage because what do you have in a garage? You got tools, right? So if I understand this correctly, IBM brings all of its vast array of tools that it's got, like hybrid cloud, artificial intelligence. It brings experts, all that. It works with the community to implement the solutions that the two parties come up with in some kind of a planning process, and then helps them implement it. Would that be a fair summary of it?
Exactly. So the accelerator is a 2-year program. So the first year or first phase is the ideation phase, and the second phase is that solutioning or building the solution. So that's when, exactly to your point, where we're mobilizing hybrid cloud credits. We also use our weather data, so we have credits from there that we use. There's cash grants, there's all the tools, technologies that we can put to use to actually build out that solution and hopefully have an impact in that indigenous community. I keep using your example as the thread.
Well, and that's a very good example because as an energy and climate journalist, I run across, technology plays a big role in my reporting. And if there's one thing that can be said, because I also, I was trained as a historian many years ago when I went to university, is how much more complex everything is getting and how much more technical it's getting. And so that means that folks on the ground, whether you're an indigenous community or a municipality on the West Coast or wherever you are, accessing those kind of the technologies and the technical skills to go along with it gets more and more difficult and more expensive. So I assume that this is about enabling those communities or nonprofits, whatever they might be, to do something they couldn't have done otherwise to solve a problem that needs solving.
Exactly. So there is that kind of expertise and the data and the tools that we can mobilize, but I also think there is a component of like capacity building for the not-for-profit organization around, like I mentioned, the cash grants to help with funding these solutions, but also, providing additional skills training, skills development. We have a skills build platform that we're going to mobilize so that communities that might not have access to training on these emerging technologies and how to use them and how to implement them to expand their impact and reach is really, really important.
I couldn't agree more. In another life, I worked a little bit in community economic development, and there was a big emphasis on capacity building within the community, because if the grant, the program, that sort of thing comes in and does it for the community, and then leaves, you really haven't left anything behind. But if you build capacity, you train people and you give them skills and access to technology, and then when you leave, or after the project at an end, then you have left something behind, and then the community can go on and use those skills and so on, to further the project and develop, do that kind of development in the community. So that's a really, I think that's a key part from my point of view of your program. Now, can you give us, we've used the example of my example of the Indigenous community. Can you give us a real life example from the program's experience?
Yeah, so this is a relatively new program. We launched it last year. So we have three pilot programs that are happening around the world, and they've just finished phase one. So we don't have full kind of impact data to let you know about. But the first example is. Or maybe, yeah, the easiest example is probably the Nature Conservancy in India. So they had a big, or they still have a big issue of kind of burning, crop burning. So like crop residue burning, and mostly in northern India is where we're working with the Nature Conservancy. So we're trying to actually build a tool to actually centralize all the data around the crop burning, and how farmers and communities can access that technologies, and then develop some interventions, because the impact of that crop burning on the kind of air quality and health of the communities around those farms have been severely impacted. So that's kind of the example that comes top of mind to me right now.
Actually, that is a good example, because I remember back in the 70s, we had the Green Revolution, which, a lot of it was pesticides and those sorts of things, tractors, and the idea was to take North American style technologies and transfer them to places like Latin America. And the idea was basically they would enjoy the benefits of industrial agriculture just like everyone else, or like North America does. And it was a colossal failure, because you'd plop these tractors and combines and whatever in a country that wasn't equipped for them. They didn't have the infrastructure, they didn't have the culture, they didn't have the technical skills, and so it was a colossal failure. It really didn't achieve its objectives. But it sounds like if you're working with the people in the community, there's this sustained effort. There's an effort at transferring skills and so on. It sounds like an interesting different approach that might actually work.
Well, and you have the background and the experience working in this space. But as you know, a lot of not-for-profits, right? They get funding for programs. They don't get funding for digital transformation or like technology tools, data, that sort of thing. So this is a way to help build their capacity so that they can, ask for or try to get more funding for this type of thing, or just really know how to access that training and skills development for their team, so that they can leverage the technology in everything that they do, whether it's back office operations, or that outward facing community programs.
Well, thank you very much, Jen. Really appreciate this, and we'll provide a link to the application form. So if anybody representing a community or an organization wants to apply, they can. And I forgot at the beginning of this interview, so I'll mention it now, that we always like to connect with our viewers, and you'll see our social media accounts come up on the screen. So please do connect with us. Thank you very much, Jen. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, lovely to meet you. Thanks for having me.